them at their best. So you should stick to their original seasons here, September, to the end of February. It's this time of the year, of course, that wild mushrooms begin to show face. I've got quite a nice variety. I'm using here about 225 grams with some chanterelle, girolles, the floret mushrooms. So basically all I've got here is sort of a large knob of butter in with the mushrooms, and of course now the seasoning of salt and pepper. And these are going to also become garlic mushrooms. So we'll just take one clove and crush that amongst the mushrooms. Now these just need a couple of minutes to soften the actual mushroom, just to slightly tenderise. And it's important whenever you're cooking a mushroom to make sure you've got quite a vibrant heat from underneath, and you can see that going on in the pan, that we're not actually getting a boiling. We're not drawing too much of the juices from the mushroom, because that's exactly what I want to retain in them. So I think they're going to be soft up now, and let's just drain them off. So that's the first stage. The other taste we're going to add to this, of course, is going to be leeks. What I've taken here is just one leek. All I've actually done here is literally split the leek, rinsed it, take off the woody base, and shred these quite finely. You'll notice as well I'm taking advantage of the whole of the leek, whereas quite often we tend to use just the white part, and normally using the green of the leek for purely a stock bases and flavours like that. But I think there's such a great variety of sort of that onion taste throughout the leek that we should all. We've got that nice change in texture, little change in flavour, and of course we're providing a nice colour for the finished dish. Now of course the next thing is to use the same pan. If we just wipe it from any of the butter that's beginning to take on too much of a nutty flavour, in which case of course would burn into the actual leeks. And we'll also use another knob of butter. And once you hear that sound and you know that it is starting to reach that little nutty stage, you can add the leeks themselves. Again, maintaining that nice vibrant heat from underneath, so they're not going to become too watery. Instead, they're going to take on that nice little sort of pan-fried, sautéed flavour. And while they're cooking, we can now transfer the mushrooms into this bowl. So again, let's quickly season, and they're going to be ready. And you can see immediately the change in consistency and texture we have in the pan. So if we turn that out, and I don't think these need to be drained at all. We can pop these straight into the bowl. The next stage is just to take 6 ramekins. These are the standard size ramekins we're going to be using. And in here I have just 200 millilitres of double cream. Now I'm going to use half of this at the moment and just spread between the 6 ramekins. Next we add the leek and the mushrooms. Another flavour I want to add to this, to enrich it, is some cheese. Now you can use a cheddar cheese for this, some good English cheddar, but I also like to use the Swiss Gruyere cheese. Now the reason for that is of course that it doesn't lose so much of that oil from the actual cheese as it cooks. It warms through and maintains a softness throughout without becoming too almost greasy. I have here just 75 grams to share between each. Now it's simply to crack an egg on top of each of the ramekins, and you can see now how that just sits on top perfectly. So just imagine this, as these lovely little pots bake through the oven, the egg will begin to cook, and then of course we have the cream warming with the leeks, with the mushrooms, with softening cheese just happening on top. Now, something else I'm going to do here is just very lightly season each with a little touch of salt. Just making sure we're going to get a little bit of extra flavour in itself. Now, the last thing we're going to add here to almost protect the egg slightly is going to, of course, to use the last of the double cream. So again, we'll just share between the molds. Of Quite an important point is to make sure you have a baking tray preheating through the oven. This will give you an instant heat in contact with the cream underneath, consequently starting to warm again the leeks and the mushrooms with the egg already in contact with that basic heat. So overall, you'll get an even cooking. Now the oven temperature is 200 degrees. Of course, that's a gas mark 6. Now this is going to take about 15 minutes if you still want that yolk to be nice and soft. If you prefer it to be a little bit firmer, then it's going to take you about 20, maximum 25 minutes to get it to be done. So that's it. The 15 minutes have passed, and you can see now we are just in that nice little bubble coming from the cream underneath. So of course that's warmed through the leeks, the mushrooms, and the cheese will just be nicely melting. Now the yolks are still just nice and soft on top, but an optional extra is just to finish each of the little pots with a trickle of olive oil, just to add a touch of extra flavour. There, ready to serve, and of course cut into. Now you can see immediately that beautiful soft egg yolk, and if we just dig that little deeper, you can also see how the cheese has started to work with the cream, and it's surrounding now the mushrooms and the leeks. So here we have mushroom and leek egg baked pots.